loud knock on the door echoed deafeningly throughout the house. Alan, who had just returned home, was taken by surprise as he tossed his coat carelessly onto a nearby chair. Recently divorced after catching his wife cheating on him, Alan now lived alone, completely absorbed in his work as a local advertising agent. He wasn't expecting visitors, and it raised questions when there was a sharp knock on the door. "Hello?" he answered somewhat irritably. Standing before him was a man of small stature with short, black, disheveled hair. His eyes were dull and almost lifeless. Alan stared at him, confused at first, and then gradually began to recognize him as an old classmate. "Lonnie?" He smirked, remembering the scrawny kid he'd once bullied. "Little Lonnie, how the hell are you doing? It's been forever." "I forgive you," Lonnie muttered in a low, monotone voice, holding out a small wooden box as a sign of forgiveness. His lips slowly began to fold into a hellish grin, shifting into a contorted smile. He stood motionless, arms spread out like some grotesque statue, presenting an outlandish gift. "What's wrong with you?" Alan reluctantly held out his hand, accepting the offering. "Do you need help?" He watched as Lonnie simply turned and Alan headed for the kitchen, deciding to pour himself a drink to relax and get comfortable. He froze in place when he saw the very wooden box that now stood on the kitchen table. Alan quickly looked back to where he had thrown it and saw that the box was no longer there. A feeling of unease gripped him as he slowly began to approach the mysterious box. Suddenly, he heard a scraping sound coming from inside the box. The sound was like the menacing scraping of nails against wood. The sound grew louder and more desperate the closer he got. The sense of unease he felt turned to panic. Alan decided to arm himself against the creature that was trying to get out of the box. He figured it must be some rodent or stray animal, a harmless prank played on him in retaliation for his bullying antics in years past. He walked over and firmly grabbed the fireplace poker, intent on putting an end to this annoying prank. He turned and strode back towards the kitchen, annoyed with the whole situation. Once again, he stopped short at the sight of the box. This time, the metal latch that locked the box had somehow succumbed to the will of whatever lurked inside. The wooden box stood on the counter with the lid open, and what had clawed at it now had a chance to break free. The scraping sound intensified, seeming to drown out all other sounds. The air around Alan became icy, and his nerves tensed in anticipation, like the strings of a bow. Alan held his breath as the smell of sulfur filled the room, and watched in horror as a single hand emerged from the depths of the crate. Slowly, the figure of a human-like creature emerged from the drawer. Goosebumps ran down Alan's spine as it sluggishly crawled outward. The nightmarish creature's thin frame and thick charcoal skin loomed insidiously over Alan. Paralyzed with fear, Alan felt his heart pounding right in his chest. He wanted to turn away and run as fast as he could, but the primal fear would not let him rest. The creature's eyes flashed with an orange-yellow light, and its reptilian-like pupils pierced Alan with an unkind stare. Spiky feathers lay on its shoulders, lightly covered by the creature's long and black matted hair. It slowly raised a thin arm and pointed it at Alan. Growling ominously, the creature bared its teeth, displaying an abnormally large and crooked smile on its face. Razor-sharp, triangular, interlocking rows of white deaths were all that greeted Alan. The words stuck in his throat couldn't get out of Alan's mouth as he stared straight at the monster in front of him. He summoned all his courage and broke free of the suffocating grip of paralyzing fear. He darted across the hallway toward his bedroom in a frenzy. Alan could feel his heart pounding in his chest and the drums in his ears. His mind was racing frantically, trying to make sense of what was happening. It was all too much to comprehend. Instinct and self-preservation were what drove Alan's will. The bedroom doors slammed shut with a clatter as Alan ran frantically inside, desperately searching for a way out. The windows were tightly locked, and deep down he knew he didn't have much time. Outside, he could hear the floorboards creaking underfoot as the creature came closer and closer. Alan rushed to the nearest closet, hoping to escape or find shelter from the creature outside. He wrapped his arms around the fireplace poker so tightly that his nails dug into the flesh, causing the skin to break. The creature was already at the door. Alan could hear it scrabbling and scratching as it made its way into the room. His body trembled with anticipation that he would soon be alone with the horrible abomination. Light from the bedroom barely filtered through the thin vents on the closet door, barely illuminating the darkened room. Behind the closet door, Alan could vaguely make out the shadow of a creature coming closer and closer. Alan held his breath and raised his weapon, ready to strike. He saw the shadow of the creature pacing back and forth at the closet door. A wave of terror swept over him, a fear so strong that it consumed his entire being. Suddenly, Alan's heart stopped, and he felt the warm, inviting breath of the creature on his neck. It was now in the closet with him. Although he couldn't see it, every sense of his body felt its presence. The creature emitted a low, ominous growl, moving closer to him with each terrifying breath. Sweat trickled down Alan's forehead, and the sensation of impending doom crept up his spine, making every second seem endless. He turned around and waved his arms in the darkness like a madman. It was over in a matter of seconds. A terrifying, soul-crushing scream rang out with deafening force, sealing Alan's fate. The knock on the door came suddenly and was like a roll of thunder. Alan's ex-wife, Grace, had not heard from him for weeks. It had ended miserably, and the divorce was ridiculous. However, it wasn't like Alan to just disappear without saying anything to anyone. She headed for the door, and again there was a disturbing knock, even louder than before, filling her with a sense of deep anxiety. "Hello?" Grace opened the door and was astonished to see Alan standing in front of her. "Alan, where have you been? Everyone's been looking for you," she exclaimed. She stared at him standing in the doorway with a dull and blank stare. His hair was unkempt and his face was gaunt, as if he had an albatross hanging around his neck that was weighing him down. His hands clutched tightly to a small wooden box, which he slowly raised to her as if offering peace. Visibly shaken, Grace accepted the small box, bombarding Alan with a barrage of questions. He stood still, almost statuesque, and with a monstrous smile simply said, "I forgive you."